Hey there, listeners. This is Carrie
and Mackenzie.
Before today's episode, we want to remind you that the content in this episode is not intended as medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment.
The use of the information on today's podcast is at the user's own risk. Listeners should contact their doctor or other qualified medical providers for medical advice.
Now roll the intro. Thanks for listening. Please enjoy. Sorry,
It's always a toss-up whether we are or not.
I don't know why. I guess I saved this for the podcast of the stupid thing I did this week.
Okay, what is you can save it and share it now.
Okay.
Okay.
So, in this house, we enjoy some peanut butter pretzels. You know, the nuggets with
the ones that are filled with peanut butter?
Yeah. They're so good. And they're the breakfast of champions for me. You have your Diet Coke.
Yeah.
And I have my peanut butter covered pretzel. Or peanut butter pretzels. So, Georgia, she smells that peanut butter, she goes nuts. So, I was at the pet store, and I found that they had little miniature peanut butter pretzels for puppies.
Oh.
So.
This was at the grocery store or at the pet store?
It was at PetSmart.
Oh, nice.
I was so excited for her. Because she was going to get
a special day for her. Yeah.
However, it would behoove me to remember that I am not holding my pretzel, but hers, before I pop it in my mouth. I ate one of her dog treats. This is... And, I had already, it had started to disintegrate, and I was like, oh no, and it didn't taste bad. I mean, it was fine.
This is that was my question is, how did it taste? What was the comparison?
It was honestly, but... I mean, I went and had to spit it out in the garbage because I'm I don't know what I've done to myself.
I mean, we could always do a blind taste test of the pretzel bites and we can see, and you distinguish between the two of them.
Between the dog treat?
Yeah, the dog treats and the human treats.
Have you ever watched Running with Scissors? Have I brought this up?
Have I seen that? I've seen clips of it before.
It's based on a memoir by Augustin Burroughs.
Right, who's the director? Because isn't it, what's his face? The one who did the...
Are you thinking Wes Anderson?
Yeah, isn't it Wes Anderson? Who is it?
I have no idea.
I thought it was Wes Anderson. I would have sworn it was Wes Anderson.
I don't think that's a Wes Anderson.
Watch, it is.
My God, I'm going to have to...
Now we have to Google it.
I'm Googling that shit.
If anyone wants to know what the behind the scenes are...
It's pretty much just me shouting, Google that shit, to myself.
Right, because I don't even do it half the time to Google.
I mean, it has an amazing cast. Annette Bening, Joseph Fiennes, Brian Cox.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen it all the way through, but it's, I have seen clips of it, and I enjoyed the clips that I've seen.
Ryan Murphy is the director.
Ryan Murphy. Oh, yeah. He's American Horror Story.
Yep.
And he also he's doing, for Netflix, he's doing the Monster series. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else that he does?
He also,
that movie's a bit lighthearted for Ryan Murphy then, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it's a horrifying tale, but, of course there were all of these complaints when it came out, oh, how do we know this is true? And things, people were trying to research who his psychiatrist had been. But anyway, my whole point of bringing that up was at one scene in the book and the movie, the psychiatrist's wife is sitting on the couch snacking on some kibble, like a literal kibble bag of dog food.
Right.
And Augustin Burroughs, that character, says, she offers it, and he's like, is that dog food? No. And she goes, oh, come on. It's just a little kibble. So when I ate my dog's treat... in my mind flash, it's a little bit of kibble. What are you reading?
Nope, just pulling up my notes. I was paying attention to your story.
Jeez. No eye contact, looking directly at her iPad.
Trying to multitask.
Trying to pretend she cared.
I did
about my stupid little story.
I care. I do care. I
know you do.
I think it's very funny. And I'm very serious that we need to do a blind taste test.
Also, we went out with our besties last night.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And
4 ladies,
Well, we haven't all gotten together since July last year.
Yeah. We're all like in different directions. And we still think that drinking show with the other two ladies.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the podcast After Dark.
Yeah. Much madness. After dark. Yeah. When you realize how stupid we are.
Yeah. We imbibe and then we conscribe. Okay.
Hey.
What?
Kenzie.
Carrie, what?
It's the Much Madness podcast. And we welcome you all.
Yeah, I'm Mackenzie.
I'm Carrie.
And yeah, we're going to talk movies today. Before we get into the movie for this week, for this episode, I don't think we've got any housekeeping. No, but I do have an exciting news thing, or like what do I want to call it? An event?
A new segment?
No.
No.
But we're recording this episode in April. It will drop in April, but in May, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. And Indeed. Carrie and I have discussed how we would like to do some giveaways related to the podcast and having people interact with our social media accounts, to bring some broader awareness to our podcast. So I guess what I would just say is look out on our social. I think we're going to do at least one giveaway, if not more, on Instagram and TikTok. They'll be announced. You have to follow us on those accounts to know when they're going to happen. But our Instagram handle is Much Madness Pod, and then the TikTok handle is Much_Madness_Pod C, because it wouldn't allow it to do podcasts, so we got cut off at Pod C. But yeah, that's our TikTok handle. And then just look out for the notifications about how to enter for the giveaways for May.
What can I say?
We are bribing people to listen to our podcast.
Yes, that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah, but
we have no shame.
We don't. No. These are bribes. Please listen. Please interact.
Please be our friend.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, so that's the kind of update for May, and then I don't think I have anything else, but we are going to inaugurate those other segments we discussed at one of the other episodes today. We're going to have a mental health myth, and we're also going to have a conspiracy corner.
I'm loving this.
Okay. So
I would like to say I'm not prepared. I have no idea what's about to happen.
Well, we can. Right. I think
I do know one of them.
I can't. But... Yeah, I kind of hinted to you about what I was going to bring up with this episode, because to announce the movie that we're going to be discussing for this episode, we pulled at the end of last episode Raymond. So that's what Carrie and I watched. And if you have any kind of idea of Raymond, like if you've heard of the movie, it's probably often discussed that it's about somebody with autism. And Carrie, did you know, because this just coincidentally keeps happening to us, April is Autism Acceptance Month.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's great.
We've been having good luck with this lately.
We have. It's almost like the podcast gods have been like, we're going to help you out.
A little bit.
Because y'all need help.
We're just going to put these pieces in place.
Yep.
April is Autism Acceptance Month, and the movie does feature prominently a character with autism. And so I wanted to discuss the myth that's really associated with autism that we need to kind of debunk, and then also I'm going to talk about the conspiracy theory that kind of informs that myth.
Oh, okay.
Autism is pretty well discussed, I guess, lately in the news because of a couple different things. So one thing which we've discussed on another episode is, as part of the president's agenda with Make America Healthy Again, the commission for that is trying to look at the cause of autism and how we can treat it. And the other thing, and I don't know if you're following this at all, this is something that I'm following, the Bryan Kohberger case in Idaho.
Yes.
Well, I just listened this past week to Emily D. Baker's show. She's a lawyer.
Oh, I love her.
Yeah, she's great. And she's been, in addition to covering the Karen Reed case, she's been covering the Bryan Kohberger case. And this past week, they were going over pretrial motions and things like that about bringing up his autism diagnosis during the trial. Yeah. And so I think you're going to be hearing a lot about it this year, about the diagnosis in general. So the myth I wanted to bring up is, it's not true, but often believed, that autism is caused by vaccinations. So that is a myth. That is not true.
It's been debunked.
And I'm going to bring up why in a little bit it is considered, like, why that myth has just been so prevalent in the general mindset. I'm going to bring it up here in a second when we talk about the conspiracy behind it, because there's a lot of people in the United States and around the world that truly believe that there is a causal link between those two, but the science disproves it. So I'm going to bring that up here in a second. I figured before we went into the conspiracy theory, I could just give a little bit of a background of the history of autism. I got my information from the ABA website, which is, ABA is a therapy. It's a type of therapy for autism, and they have on their website like a history of the disorder, like the diagnosis and things like that. I found that their timeline, it's on their website, it's one of their web pages. I feel like it was like the most easy to follow, easy to read. So autism is first identified in 1908 by Eugene Bleuler. I guess that's how you pronounce his name. And he kind of coins the phrase autism because he was describing some of the like autonomic peculiarities of schizophrenic patients. So it was originally associated with schizophrenia.
Interesting. I would have never...
I think it's kind of just bizarre behaviors, right? Like just some oddities.
And that was back during the day of the alienist.
Yes. Yeah. So 1908 is when it's coined. But then child psychiatrist Leo Kanner did a study involving 11 children, and it was basically like a qualitative study where he observed them and kind of noted their shared similarities, but he was looking at their sensitivity to like certain textures and their sensitivity to like social interactions, sounds, other stimuli, them having like allergies to food, which now it's kind of like, we know with people with autism now, it's like, it's not necessarily a true allergy, it's like an aversion. So, but back then that's what he would refer to that. That was 1943. And then in 1944, we have Hans Asperger, who studied a group of children, and he looked at many of the same traits that Kanner did, and he starts, he coins his phrase of Asperger syndrome. So there's some more studies in 1960 by Bruno Bettelheim. Now, this is where another kind of myth comes into play, too, with autism. Bruno Bettelheim, in therapy with these children that have these traits of autism, he felt like the common trait amongst them, and what he attributed to be the cause of autism for them, is to have like refrigerator mothers, is what he said. So saying that they were cold, aloof, not like they didn't attach to their children, and that's why kids developed.
Why did they, and I'm sure they still do, blame the mom? It's all about the mom. It
couldn't be possibly be the dad. Well,
no wonder women feel so much pressure and stress about like being perfect mothers and making sure, because I might be wrong, but I feel like there's an assumption that if anything goes wrong with those kids, it's the mom. It doesn't fall on the dad. Well, they were in your body. You have most of the time with them.
I think especially in early childhood, children are majority around their mothers. And I think it's kind of like a conflation, I think, of like nature versus nurture. It's almost like a combination of both, right? The nature of what they inherited from their mothers, and then also the nurturing of their mothers. And so, yeah, you're right, it kind of comes back down to the mothers, and they're ignoring a lot of the time any kind of involvement with father.
Well, also, it seems like back in the 40s, they were discounting that it was anything physiological. So were they thinking, so since it was connected to schizophrenia, so was it in the DSM as a mental illness?
So it wasn't added to the DSM until 1987, which would have been the DSM-3.
So it is considered a mental illness?
Yes.
Autism.
Yeah, but it is considered neurologically based.
Okay.
So, which means it's under, like now, the most recent DSM-5, it's under developmental disorders.
Okay.
Right. So, like, it's grouped with intellectual disability. It's grouped with, like, learning disabilities. It's grouped with ADHD. Like, it's very similar to that. So that's where it falls. But, yeah, back in, like, the 60s, 70s, they're not necessarily looking at the genetic. They might have been, someone might have been looking at the genetics component of it. But we do know that, and especially, like, in my training, so when I was in school to become a nurse practitioner, I did a brief kind of observation at a community mental health. Well, it wasn't actually a community mental health. It was like just a community health clinic, like, and there was a doctor there, I forget her name, but she was treating the kids. So she was the pediatrician or whatever, the child psychiatrist. Yeah. I can't remember if she was what she was, but she was actually involved in a study where if she encountered a child where she diagnosed them with autism, they did genetic sampling, and so she would get the results, and she had this massive spreadsheet where they were looking at specific alleles and things like that. So, I mean, there is a lot of consensus, and I think it's pretty much supported by the research literature that there is a genetic component to autism. Okay. Is it the only component? They're still trying to find that out, but
figure it out.
Yeah, they're trying to figure it out, but it's on this timeline from the ABA Centers of America. They put in here when the movie Raymond came out and how it brought to general audiences and the big screen like a portrayal of autism. So they mark it down as part of like a significant, mark date in the timeline.
I wonder if, since there was a name to put to it, and they see a movie where, because Dustin Hoffman plays a very sympathetic, like very...
Yes.
I mean, in his own way, very loving character.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember I was in junior high when it came out. And all of a sudden, in science class, we're talking about autism. And of course, everyone loved to use the old term, idiot savant.
Right. I was doing some research looking up where the phrase idiot savant came into play. Where did it come? Oh, yeah, this is where it was. This is in the, it's the Psychological Transactions of the Royal Society. There was a paper about the savant syndrome, like how it came to be. Savant syndrome and idiot savant, I mean, they're similar but different. Like, idiot savant is where, like, someone would have certain deficits or certain inabilities with certain things, but then they have this special ability. And then savant syndrome is just maybe someone who could be more neurotypical, but then develops the savant syndrome where they become extraordinarily gifted in something, whether it's like music or like mathematics or like being a really good chess player or things like that. I remember watching a episode of House where they called him like the idiot savant because this adult had a traumatic brain injury and he ended up developing savant syndrome.
Hopefully, if that were to happen, it would be something useful.
Yeah.
That you could make money, not like...
So, the conspiracy theory, kind of before we get into the movie, let's just talk about this really quick. The conspiracy theory of where autism is caused by a vaccine or vaccines in general came from a paper that was published in 1998 by Andrew Wakefield, and there were some others, 12 other people they attributed the paper to them. And it took a look at supposed data they had, which indicated that the MMR vaccine in particular, that's the one that they studied, could have had a causal link to people developing autism. So it came out in 1998. It was very controversial. No one had posited that before. No one had written about it. And I think the thing kind of that started off this whole conspiracy of looking at vaccines and how they might be causing autism, which really fueled the anti-vax, I think, movement. So I think it was happening before that, because I think there was before. I think it was just a suspicion of what Big Pharma was doing, But then you had this paper come out, and then it was trying to give some justification to that. And I think it's really. I think it's been really detrimental because
he came out and said he had lied and made up data for it. Right.
But the thing is too that immediately, I'm looking at this is an article that came out in the British Medical Journal. It came out in 2011, and it's basically an editorial about how Wakefield's article linking MMR vaccine and autism was fraudulent. That's the name of it. And the author for that is, it's an editor. I think it just comes from the editor-in-chief. I don't know who that is. It's not. There's no name associated with it, but it was the editorial for that, for the edition that came out in January of 2011. So basically, upon its release, though, it was quickly suspicious from people in the medical community about what Wakefield had published. And over the next decade, there was other researchers that tried to mimic his tests, like his procedure.
Yeah, his findings.
Yeah, and to replicate. Because in science, if someone publishes something, if they find something, the idea is being able to replicate that as much as possible to confirm statistically the findings and make sure that it kind of all lines up, but people were not able to replicate or confirm anything he said. So like you said, I think he ended up having to come out and say that his data was fraudulent because there was such pressure from the medical community, from the wider scientific community about how his study was.
Did he ever give an explanation as to why he did that?
I don't think so. And I'm looking at this editorial. I had read it first, but I don't think that there was ever like a reason for it.
I mean, he knew it would make his name.
Yeah, but then also too, like, this article from the British Medical Journal is stating that now, like, a lot of his other things, whatever else he had published is not being called into question. But the Lancet had to retract the paper, and they made a statement about retracting the paper. But, as we kind of discussed off mic, I'm wondering, like, how it even got passed through peer review.
Yeah, that's weird. If there is a conspiracy, it was with the group who published the paper, not, with the vaccines being given. I remember when that paper came out, and Jenny McCarthy, her son...
Yeah, she was a big proponent of the anti-vax stuff.
She wrote a whole book about it, that her son, Evan, that's why he had autism, and she said that she came out at some point and said he had been cured of it. I don't know. It was all very strange. But she, to this day, pushes that.
Still?
I think she does.
I thought she retracted what she said. Maybe not.
Well, I'm going to have to Google it.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, I think that's our conspiracy corner, is like it's the anti-vax conspiracy that autism is caused by vaccines. Particular, if you wanted to narrow it down, it's the MMR vaccine, and it all started with that journal article by Wakefield.
You know what, though? I can see, as a parent, wanting to have it be something tangible. Like, that's what... Because it's so hard, I'm sure. Like, your kid is sick. No idea why. It just happens. Like you had said, it had been, it's the mother. It's the relationship with the mother.
Right. That was a prevailing theory for a while, starting in the 60s. Yeah.
I could see wanting to believe that is the truth.
Well, and I mean, it's for a lot of people, it's better to have a false theory rather than to have it be unknown, because that's more uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So, Rain Man.
Rain Man.
Okay. Came out in 1988. The director, Barry Levinson, who, by the way, did you catch that Barry plays a character in the movie?
Who does he play?
He plays, toward the end of the movie, we're jumping way ahead, spoilers, but when Tom Cruise is in California, is contesting the kind of guardianship, and they're meeting with the psychiatrist who's just kind of talking to Rain Man, who is Raymond. So he's talking to Raymond, and then Tom Cruise's character Charlie's there, and then they're with the Dr. Brunner is there. The doctor who's sitting at the table with the glasses with the gray hair, that's Barry Levinson. And so, he plays a character in the movie. So he's the director. It stars Dustin Hoffman as Raymond Babbitt, and then it stars Tom Cruise as Charlie Babbitt. They are brothers. They're full-blooded brothers, but, part of the plot of the movie is that Charlie doesn't become aware of Raymond until their father dies. But then also, too, as just information about the background of the movie, is that the original story was written by Barry Morrow. And then the music is by Hans Zimmer throughout the movie.
I mean, it is very good.
It is. I didn't realize until watching it again that it was like, I was paying attention to the credits and it said Hans Zimmer. Those are the details of the movie. And so...
I also have a little background when you're ready for it.
I'm ready. Add it.
You might already have this, but...
I don't know if I do.
Dustin Hoffman, I watched on YouTube Rain Man, deleted scene and featurette. It was a behind the scenes.
Yeah.
We'll link it. But Dustin Hoffman talked about they met several people and hung out with a lot of people with autism. But it was really, the story was based on a man named Kim Peek.
Okay.
When he was born I think in 41. But when he was born, like, they told him sorry, nothing we can do. He should be institutionalized or lobotomized. Because as he gets older, he'll be harder to control. And the dad, Fran, was just like, no, there's nothing my son can't achieve. And my God, is that man, like, he's like a computer.
Yeah.
He's one of...
Is he still alive? He must be still alive, maybe.
I should look. I really didn't want to know because if his dad had... And I'm sure his dad would be dead by now. I don't like to think of it. Here I am, like, ignore reality.
Right. Oh, no, he passed away.
When?
In 2009.
The dad or Kim?
Kim.
Okay. How old was he?
He was 58 years old. So, yeah, his life was shortened, but he might have had other kind of medical...
health issues.
Yeah.
But anyway, so, I mean, he's one of those special people who could remember every day that they've been alive.
It's incredible.
They were asking him, okay, August 20th, 1954, what day of the week was it? And he could tell you. He could tell you. They had him at colleges, and like one guy said, can you tell me about all of Muhammad Ali's fights? And he said, well, I'm going to have to make it short, so I will just tell you who he fought against and if he won.
Right.
And he did. But the love of his dad, and his dad saying, no one's doing this to my son. Mm-hmm. I know, his humanity. He recognized his humanity, and his dad wrote a book. And, I mean, it was just great. But Dustin Hoffman said that when he met with him, like they had been together a few days, and then they ended up putting their heads together like they do in the movie. Mm-hmm. And Dustin Hoffman was like, and we just sat there. And he goes, we connected.
Yeah.
Like, he trusted me.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was incredible. I did not realize it was based.
Like on a real person. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it was great.
Well, and I don't think I knew that either. Not that I, dug my research heels too deep into this, but I was just, trying to...
Well, I can't help myself.
The rabbit hole.
Yeah. I'm like, well, she's doing the psychological. I'm gonna get that historical hot goss.
Get it for the podcast, girl. We need it. Yeah. So we meet Raymond after we get to know Charlie first in the beginning of the movie. So what you see in the beginning of the movie is Charlie, very 80s, very
wow,
very.
Getting those Lambos.
No, I know, but I love the costumes. I love the wardrobe for everybody. Very 80s.
Yep.
Especially with Tom Cruise throughout the movie, he will wear a button-down shirt, but it's got no collar, so you can't wear a tie. So it's a button-down shirt, no collar, and he's in a suit. So like a Nehru. Is that what it's called?
I think so.
I don't know. Anyway, but it's very 80s. It's very Wall Street. It's very
for anyone who
very American Psycho,
anyone who lived through that era.
Yeah,
you turn on that movie and you're taken back to the Reagan administration.
Well, yeah,
it was a very scary time.
I know. Well, and the thing is, Charlie's complaining about the EPA about getting these Lambos brought in. So he owns a car dealership and he's trying to sell some Lamborghinis. And he's being held up by the EPA.
Does he own a car dealership? I thought he was import-export.
I thought it said throughout the movie he had a dealership. But he could have been. It could have been he could have been importing specialty cars for buyers or whatever. Is that what you're saying?
I thought that he had imported the Lambos for a dealership, and then when they couldn't get them passed by the EPA, the dealership said, "Well, we don't want them."
Oh no, I thought those were the individual customers that he was having to appease because their cars were not in when they were supposed to be.
Do we unknowingly take drugs to where we don't know what's happened in the movie?
I don't know. I thought I was paying attention, but yeah, it could be. So there's a dealership involved, whether it's Charlie's or not. I guess that's the question, but
because their office was at the shipyard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, maybe. Yeah, that's actually a fair. I didn't think about that before. But yeah, so then he gets a call that his father... Well, honestly, the car comes into his car phone in his car. And he's on the way to Palm Springs with his girlfriend, Susanna. Mm-hmm. And she's also, works for him as, his secretary. But they're on the way to a little, vacay. He gets a call that his father's died. And if he wants to go to the funeral, it's in Cincinnati, which, I did like the part of the movie that's in Cincinnati because I lived in Cincinnati. So the place that they're talking about, not the institution that they're obviously, that didn't exist, but, at one point in the beginning of the movie, they talk about Tom Cruise getting in trouble for taking his dad's car without permission out on the highway, on the Columbia Highway, which is also Route 50. And it's a very scenic road in Cincinnati because it's along the Ohio River. When he said that, I knew exactly where he was talking about. Yeah. And
it's a beautiful car.
Well, and his house, the house that they talk about, it actually exists. Mm-hmm. It's an actual address, and it's very close to Walnut Hills down there, which is like a well-to-do neighborhood. Like, I don't know if it's technically in that neighborhood, but it's close by. So I enjoyed that part of Cincinnati. But yeah, Charlie's told to come to Cincinnati for the funeral, and there's going to be a reading of the will. So,
and as far as he knows, he's an only child.
Right. Yeah, he doesn't find out he has a brother until at the reading of the will. He finds out nothing has been left to him except for the car. And what was it? There was something else that was left to him.
I don't know. But I can't remember. The big kick in the pants was
his estate for $3 million, which was left to his brother, which he doesn't even find out his brother. So no
one even tells him, which I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't understand either. I don't understand why the lawyer wouldn't, unless it said in the directions specifically, do not say anything about Raymond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I loved when they went to meet Raymond that first time.
Yeah.
And he's out talking about the car and that he drives it and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
To the girlfriend, Suzanne.
Yeah.
Susanna or Suzanne?
It's Susanna.
Susanna.
Mm-hmm.
You would think I didn't watch anything.
Yeah.
But it's been a weird week around here.
Right.
I loved him coming out and saying, oh, yeah, I drive this car. Right. I drive it every Thursday, I think he said.
No, it was on the weekends. Oh. Because Tom Cruise comes to see him during the week.
Oh,
and he's
that's right.
He only drives on Sundays. Yeah.
This can't be. It made me wonder about the dad. Because the dad obviously had I mean, he could have just put him there and never
exactly
went to see him. But it was apparent that his dad was at least loving towards him.
Yeah, but...
And letting the autistic older brother drive a car.
Yeah, but it's just interesting that, he would... But how he treats Raymond so differently than he treated Charlie. I was looking back through my notes, too, by the way.
Okay.
The other thing that Charlie got in the will was the prized rose bushes because it was so that he could learn the possibility of perfection. That was what was the lawyer read out.
You know.
This dad's kind of a jerk. Like...
I mean, they do mention that they had a bad relationship and that he left and never went back. Mm-hmm. Even though, didn't it say that the dad had tried to get in touch with him?
I can't remember.
I can't either.
But possibly.
But that he had refused to go home or to have any contact. So at that point, I'm like, well, why do you think you get anything if you have no relationship?
Right.
Just because you're his kid. He has a life filled with other people.
Yeah.
So I thought that was entitled as all get, but it was the 80s.
Well, and it kind of goes back to, so Tom Cruise's character, Charlie, when he's talking to Susanna at the house, where he's waiting, it was after the funeral, he's waiting for the meeting with the lawyer about the estate, and he's telling her the story about how much trouble he got in with taking the car out without permission. The punishment he got, which I forget what his punishment was, but he basically said, because I deserved it, nothing I did was ever good enough for that guy, for his dad. Well, because he wanted to take the car out originally because he had gotten all A's. He was on the honor roll. He was very proud of all he did. And he asked to take the car out with his friends to celebrate, and his dad just said no.
Well, I wouldn't let a 16-year-old out in a vintage car to celebrate with their friends.
I wouldn't either. But I think,
Well, when you're 16, you don't get it.
No, and then it's just kind of adds fuel to the fire, and it's like the final straw, right? Like, my dad never lets me do anything. I asked him for one thing, and yeah. Well,
and also, the dad, Charlie and Raymond's dad, he had two sons, one with autism, and then I could see putting a lot of pressure on the kid you thought could achieve.
Right, because he's like neurotypical.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And I could see, like, maybe someone wealthy with very prideful being, okay, well, this older kid isn't gonna, like, boost my ego or my status with my friends. So the other one should be perfect.
Yeah, I get the understanding that, like, no one in Charlie's dad's life probably... Well, there must have been some people that knew about Raymond because he's the older brother. He was, like,
He was 18 or something, 15 when Charlie was born.
Yeah, so there's a big gap. Yeah, and there must have been people in their lives that knew about him.
Well, but with Tom Cruise leaving and never...
No, but I'm talking about, like, other people, like, other adults.
Yeah.
In their life. Like, I'm sure that Tom Cruise's mom...
why wouldn't they ever... Unless they were told not to bring him up.
Maybe.
But...
Or maybe they thought something happened to him, too. Because, like, after, Raymond... What we learn is that Raymond got sent away after Charlie's mother passed away. And Charlie was 2.
Right. And it was for a specific reason.
Why he got sent away?
Yeah.
Well, we kind of learn it later, but we might as well bring it up now. Yeah. So later in the movie, you find out that without some supervision, I guess is what we would say, like with Tom Cruise's and Raymond's mom being around after she passed away, Raymond gets sent away because there was at one point that Raymond had put Charlie in a bathtub or did something with that where the water was way too hot and Charlie got burned. Charlie was burned. And it's a very traumatic memory for Raymond. Charlie has no idea about it. He cannot remember.
He was too young to remember.
Right, but there's a scene later in the movie where Charlie is trying to get Raymond to take a bath, and Raymond says it's like too hot. He starts freaking out, and then, Charlie kind of deduces this had to do with him because Raymond's talking about baby in the bath and it's too hot.
And he referred to himself as Rain Man.
Right.
And Charlie goes, what?
Yeah.
Because he thought he had an imaginary friend named Rain Man, because that's the only way he could pronounce his name as a
right.
little.
But it was his memories. It was his memories of his brother that he actually had.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess...
I remember when it came out.
Yeah.
Because I think we ended up renting it, but back when people did that. And I remember finding out, like, that was a huge reveal. Like, when that was revealed, everyone was like, gosh.
Yeah. Like the Sixth Sense reveal, kind of like that.
Maybe not as good as the Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it was... I watch it now and I'm thinking, Raymond, Rain Man, why couldn't I put that together?
Right. I think because I've watched this movie since I was younger. One of the lines from the movie where Raymond's talking about driving his father's car and he says, "I'm an excellent driver." Mm-hmm. My dad loves that line from that movie. So like he'll say it. My dad will, like, when we're driving and my mom is criticizing my dad's driving, he'll be like, "I'm an excellent driver." So I've seen this movie before, but yeah, I mean, I knew that was like a twist, and I guess I wasn't, obviously watching it again, I wasn't as surprised, but yeah, it's...
My mom hasn't been able to drive in about, 12 years. Mm-hmm. And because of her vision and some, not medical issues. Mm-hmm. And every once in a while, she'll look at me and say, "I don't know what to do. What should I be doing?" I'm like, "Let's get you the car keys. You just take off and go do what you want."
Yeah.
And she'll say, "Well, I don't think your dad will let me." And I'm like, "You just tell him that you are an excellent driver."
Oh, yeah. And
that was right around the age when that came out. Mm-hmm. Like a couple years later, I got my driver's license. So that was...
I'm an excellent driver.
Yeah. And like everyone around me, that was just such a catchphrase.
I think it's quoted a lot, honestly. Yeah. Once Charlie kind of figures out who this person who has gotten his father's estate, right? It's set up in a trust. And I think the lawyer kind of says who the trust...
The trust is run by the lawyer. Or no, by the psychiatrist.
Right, yeah, but he figures it out somehow. That it's the Walbrook where not where Charlie's at, where Raymond's at. I forget how he figures it out, but he goes there looking for someone to talk to about like why there's a trust that's set up for Walbrook, well, for someone at Walbrook or whatever. And so the reason that Charlie comes across Raymond is because his girlfriend Susanna is sitting out in the car, waiting for him.
Comes up to the car.
Yeah, and then Charlie's like trying, like, this person who he doesn't know from Adam or Eve, and Raymond's like up at the car, like saying that he drives it and things like that, and he's like, "How do you drive this car?" And like he knew all the the details of the car, like the make, the model, the fact that it was a very rare car. How many
miles?
So he knew all that stuff, and he kind of puts together that this is his brother, because Raymond also says his dad's home address. And then Charlie's like, that's where I grew up. And like, he puts two together and he's like, oh my God, I have an older brother. And then, obviously he's annoyed that nobody told him, but it's kind of explained that, yeah, his dad wanted to keep it private, keep it a secret, but reasons unknown, whatever. Probably the stigma, my guess, but.
Well, and that he had hurt Charlie.
Oh, yeah, Charlie, yeah.
So, back then, the age that his dad would have been, if you had a child who had difficulties and you put them in an institution, they were never spoken of again.
Right.
So, the thought, we were thinking, well, how did no one mention it? Because it was a shameful thing.
Yeah, it was more common then, yeah. This is still in the 80s when he's there, but, like, there was a movement in our country, in the United States, to close down a lot of the mental health institutions.
Well, that was because Ronald Reagan shut them down.
Well, it started with JFK. JFK in the 60s, early 60s, wanted to...
By the end of the 80s,
yeah,
the homeless crisis
right,
was horrible because so many of the institutions,
right,
they just had to let people go.
Yeah.
No support system.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? They're going to end up on the streets trying to survive.
Well, and it started with JFK in that I forget what there was a congressional committee that looked at these institutions across the country, and they found that they were poorly staffed. There was lots of abuses and things like that. So JFK, part of his administration, was like, we're going to put these people back into the community. We're not going to lock them up. We're not going to separate them from society. So we're going to, like, in a way, kind of
integrate them.
Yeah, integrate them. So that's where we get community mental health centers, and that's where you see a lot of more people with schizophrenia and things out in the community because they are not locked away anymore. But yeah, like you said, it just got accelerated.
Which, people shouldn't be locked up just because of that.
No.
I mean, it makes no sense that they were housed.
Right.
I mean, I had which my great-great-grandmother Sabina, she lived the last 30 years of her life at Weston State Hospital in West Virginia. It was built in the Civil War. She was admitted in 1904 and died in 1934.
Yeah.
And she was warehoused. She was put there, and she never left. And it was by the, I think, second year it was open and it was overcrowded. It was only meant to house, I think, 600 people.
Yeah.
And they had 1,900.
Right.
I explain how that all works. And then later on, they switched it over to where they had the top floor of the asylum. They changed it in the 80s to like an alcohol rehab type place where they would just...
Detox people
up in the attic. Terrifying.
Nice.
But that became a place where they were just warehousing people. A lot of veterans from Vietnam, a lot of Vietnam vets.
Yeah.
And it was bad. So it was closed in the 90s, but now you can tour it.
Okay, cool.
I went hoping Sabina would speak to me. I heard nothing.
Her spirit was no longer there. She's like, girl, I was here for long enough. I'm out.
I died of TB in this place. What do you want me to just hang out?
Yeah. You off it. You off your rocker. So I saw, when I was looking up, again, information about the movie, I saw that there was like, there's a lot of mixed reviews about the movie. So when it came out, like, it was well received. Dustin Hoffman won the Academy Award for Best Leading Actor. There's lots of admiration for, like, kind of what the movie was doing, but then, like, in, hindsight is 2020. In retrospect, there's criticism about how someone with autism is portrayed in the movie. So,
however, it was also the 80s.
Yeah.
And they didn't know as much as they know now.
No.
That's what I always try to think when I look at these older movies. Like, that's what they knew at the time.
Yes.
Don't be too harsh, people, when you judge it. Right.
Well, because I was taking notes about when Tom Cruise's character Charlie is talking to Raymond's doctor, Dr. Bruner, about him. Because he's trying to understand, like, what is wrong with my brother? I don't understand. He drops a hard R. He asks if he's the R word. And then the doctor's like, no, he's autistic. He's got, like, an autism disorder. And then when Tom Cruise is like, you're going to have to explain it to me. I don't understand. So this is what Dr. Bruner says. He says that they have certain deficiencies and certain abilities, which is, true with Raymond's character and definitely true with people with autism even today. And then he says, this disability impacts the sensory input and how it's processed. We know that is true. He put that, he was saying to Charlie that Raymond is actually high functioning compared to other people. Now, this is kind of going to your point about at the time, Raymond probably was considered high functioning. Yeah. However, since we have expanded our understanding of autism and the wide spectrum that people fall, Raymond's probably not as high functioning as we would consider.
Yeah, like for today,
yes,
high functioning, I mean, you see these great companies, well, maybe not great companies, but these big companies like Google, and they have recruiters to the autistic community, and they have set up like buddy programs where you'll have an autistic worker, and then you'll have a worker without autism come alongside and make sure they're doing okay. And the company sets up social nights for them, and and they have their own apartments. This is Seattle. They have their own apartments, and
maybe he's not as high functioning as we would consider now, because there's certainly people on the spectrum who need less support than Raymond did. But like at the time, he was considered high functioning. That's what Dr. Bruner was saying.
Well, and in my job, I work in higher ed, and every semester I have several students who are somewhere on that spectrum. And those are some of the most rewarding people that I work with, because so curious, like just so curious to get used to what their needs are and like what they will deal with and what they won't with you. I've had kids who,
these are adults, right?
Adults, but I've had students who, this was years ago. I had one student who, he would get incredibly anxious. So he would have to go in the hall and like run sprints to just get all of that anxiety out.
Right.
And then come back in. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know, it's just rewarding to work with people who really want to be there.
Yeah.
And really want to work hard.
Yeah.
Which isn't always the case.
Yes. And so the doctor also then tells Charlie that, I'm just quoting this is from the movie directly, he can't even express himself or probably even understand his own emotions in a traditional way. That, again, that's still something that holds true for autism. Like there's...
And men.
Well... Is it a male problem? No. Well, because also, I see women with autism too, very, very similar in that it's hard for them, difficult sometimes to recognize emotions in other people unless they're kind of taught or pick up, to recognize certain things. And then also too, when people with autism are feeling certain emotions, sometimes they can't put words to it. They can't understand it. And that, we see that with Raymond in the movie. And then he's also, Dr. Bruner's also telling Charlie that he's going to have routines and rituals. It's all he has to protect himself from the dangers that are everywhere. Now, when I was looking up reviews of the movie or talking, more current discussions of this movie, given what we know about autism now, there's a lot of people that feel like that's hyperbolic. Like there are people with autism that there's not dangers everywhere for them. I think it depends on the severity of your autism as to whether that would you pose a risk to yourself or other people, or if the world around you poses a risk. But there's people that when they discuss this movie that they kind of pick on that kind of summary,
Yeah, but once again, think of when it was made.
Right. The doctor's trying to emphasize to Charlie that, he can't really break from these routines. The routines help him stay calm, and they, it's something familiar, and
like
it's just
they
how
go
his
to bed
brain
at a
works.
certain time. They eat certain foods at a certain time. So,
right. And he also tells, Dr. Bruner also tells Charlie that, like, all this money that Raymond's been left to him, he doesn't understand the concept of money. Like, this doesn't make any sense to him. He just understands his small kind of world that's at Walbrook where he lives. One of my favorite lines kind of comes after this. So after Charlie's done talking to the doctor, he goes into Raymond's room and is kind of like looking through his life. And Ray is like very like, not agitated. He's very anxious. He's
touching my stuff.
Yeah, he's restless. Well, he says to Vern is, I think, he's like an orderly or like a
buddy there.
Yeah, he would be like a behavioral health tech. That's like what another position that we see like in mental health stuff. But like Ray is saying to Vern, he's like, of course these people are going to be here all day, Vern. And then like the next sentence is, this is an unannounced visit, Vern. So I was like, I wanted to add that to my repertoire of my responses.
Not only are you an excellent driver, but...
Right. This is an unannounced visit, Vern.
Well, in the 80s, people would just come visit and knock on your door without calling.
Right.
It was horrible. I feel Raymond right here.
So what ends up happening after this in the movie is that Charlie essentially abducts Ray. He convinces him to get in the car with some of his stuff. And in Charlie's mind, he's like, I'm going to hold Ray hostage because I want my half of his inheritance. Like 300 million. Oh my God, 3 million.
God.
Oh my God. 3 million, especially in 1988 dollars. Like, Ray's not going to need all of that, right? That's what Charlie's thinking. And he's like, I deserve half of that, because I'm the other brother. So he's going to hold Ray hostage. And the girlfriend, Susanna's like, this is not a good idea. Like, I don't really think this is a good idea. And Charlie's saying, oh yeah, no, it's okay. The doctor said it was okay to take him out for a little bit or whatever. Like he's lying basically to her. And then they end up, they get a hotel because they leave the city. And, I think Ray's actually doing pretty well with being out of his routine.
And honestly, Charlie is more than willing to like move the bed to the window and to try to accommodate, but not that he doesn't get pissed off.
I think there's some limitations. Yeah, right. Like he tries, but I think
but he doesn't understand.
No,
and
he doesn't
love him.
No, not well. I don't think he has affection yet.
Yeah, he doesn't.
But I think he's doing those things probably more to keep him quiet and to keep him not reactive. I don't know if it's so much as like he's trying to. At that point, I don't think he's trying to meet him on his level or whatever.
I don't think it's meeting him on his level. I'm just trying to think that someone like Charlie, who's upset, pretty much just holding him for ransom, you would have to do things to keep him calm. But also I can think of people who would just not do anything and get mad.
Mm-hmm. But then there's some other things that, like, again, looking back at the movie are kind of like abusive with when, like, Charlie's yelling at Ray.
Yeah,
and
Charlie verbal abuse.
Well, and Charlie gets upset when Ray walks in on him and Susanna having sex. And, like, yeah, there's lots of verbal abuse, but there's also, like, the physical abuse, too. Because after Susanna leaves, because after she gets upset with how she's, or how Charlie is treating Ray, she leaves. She goes back to California. But then they're on their own. And at one point in a diner where Charlie's trying to understand Ray, he's on some level, he's trying to figure out how he ticks. So Charlie makes an impromptu stop at like a small town, thinking he's going to find a psychiatrist in 1980 in 88 in a small town, which he
just found a doctor.
He found a doctor. And so we go or what we see is like, Charlie's talking to the doctor about Ray, but then after that they go to a diner and Charlie gets frustrated with Ray because Ray is talking about pancakes and isn't it
toothpicks.
Syrup? Oh no, it's the toothpicks, right? But Charlie grabs Ray, and kind of brings him in close and kind of yells at him. Yeah, so he's, there's some physical abuse there too.
I was trying to have a positive spin, but as we all know, Tom Cruise has no positive spin.
Right. Well, but I mean, like, part of what garnered a lot of appreciation, I guess you could say, for this movie,
showing the frustration.
Well, not only that, but then also like the journey that Charlie goes on where he does, come to accept.
Because he really, by the end, he wants Raymond to live with him. It's not about the money.
No.
It's about
having a relationship with his brother that he didn't know he had.
Yeah. But also still not understanding the limitations of that.
So what we learn about Ray is that a part of his autism, I guess we could say, is that he's very good with numbers. He's very good with counting. He has a very good memory. Like, he memorizes the phone book, right?
Well, I mean, and he did so they're at this restaurant, box of toothpicks falls, and Raymond looks at them and knows exactly how many are on the floor. He also, when he finds out the name of the waitress, gives her address and phone number, and Charlie is like, how do you know her? How do you know that? And he goes, you told me to read the phone book. Like, it was just such a, like, why are you confused? You told me to read.
Right, exactly.
I read.
And he's like, Charlie's like, you read the whole phone book? He's like, no, I only got through halfway of G.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get all the way. And also, too, I guess we should say part of the reason why they're on the road trip that they're on is because Charlie tries to get Ray on a plane to California.
Qantas.
Yeah, and that was the only one that didn't have... Because Ray starts to freak out because he's never been on a plane, and two, he's afraid of the plane, crashing.
He knows all the statistics.
Right, and so Charlie cannot get Ray on the plane because he has a freak out at the airport. So they're on this like road trip
and
or whatever.
And the only company that had not had a crash was the Australian airline Qantas. That's all he would fly.
Right. Get to see them on this road trip journey. So it's like, you could almost say like you know, there's all these movies about road trips, right? Like the American experience of a road trip. And this is definitely one of those. It's very, you know, an interesting one. We see Charlie and Ray in all of these situations, and it's kind of trying to highlight, again, Ray's autism, Charlie kind of having to, you know, adjust.
And I'm not sure Charlie's character, I feel like he was not someone who adjusted well.
Right.
Like I didn't see him as someone who was like, oh my gosh, this person hurting or doing this, I need to adjust my behaviors, accommodate. He was not an accommodator.
Well, and even to the point, so we get to this point in the movie where, because Charlie sees this ability in Ray about numbers and things like that, he gets a bright idea of going to Vegas to count cards. And so he tries to teach Ray how to count cards, how to play blackjack, because Ray's never played blackjack, so he kind of has to teach him how to play.
He just didn't let Ray in on not telling anyone you're counting cards.
Yeah. Probably one of the well-known scenes of the movie is like when they come down the escalators at the casino and they're dressed alike. Like Charlie spends some of Ray's money basically to get him dressed up, and they go down to the casino floor and they start playing blackjack, and they win like $80,000 something dollars. And then later, when Ray is approached by a prostitute at a bar, like you said, he doesn't know how to keep that as a secret and just blabs to her what they're doing.
Oh, what are you doing here, counting cards?
Right.
My question is,
yeah,
she was also working for the casino, right? Because she obviously went and told somebody.
I think it's kind of like where things she was working. Maybe she could have been working for the casino. I mean, I think you know, that we can't put it past casinos and, you know, kind of all the shady business that can be associated with them. Like maybe that was happening, but I took it more to be like, rather than like if she were to get caught prostituting herself and soliciting at these establishments, right? Because
she had leverage.
So she went and told, so that maybe they would turn a blind eye to her doing her business or whatever.
Trying to make sweet love.
Well, but so Ray and Charlie are kicked out or whatever, and then
okay, and I know this non sequitur, but what kind of a sequitur?
Yeah,
The Hangover. Yeah, it has a scene where they copy Zach Galifianakis can count cards.
Oh, that's right.
And so they dress alike.
I forgot about that.
He and Bradley Cooper's character.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And
I totally forgot about that scene in the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that's kind of like how iconic this scene in Rayman is.
So iconic.
But after they get kicked out, Charlie does get Ray back to California and has him set up in like that apartment or that house or whatever.
And now he's like trying to actually have him stay with him because he wants to.
Right.
Yeah. Not because he wants money.
Right. And he's going to be meeting with, you know, there's a meeting set up with Dr. Bruner, who's coming from Cincinnati to California because that's where they're at. Again, because Charlie's kind of holding Ray hostage, and they're meeting with the doctor who ends up being Barry Levinson.
Can I just go back to the Vegas?
Oh, yeah. What do you want to say about Vegas?
When they're in the room and Raymond had never danced. And he might have to dance. And because Raymond doesn't like to be touched.
Right.
And when he and Tom Cruise, when Charlie and Raymond, good Lord, when they slow dance, that scene every time gets me. I want to cry.
But, you know, with Vegas too, like, I mean, I think part of it was, you know, Charlie's trying to embrace and appreciate Ray's abilities, right? Like his, you know, but he's also using him too, you know?
Well, yeah, because, I mean, one thing we haven't mentioned is that he has a deadline where he has to have, was it $200,000 for those cars he had to pay?
I forget how much it was, but it was a lot.
Because people had backed out.
Yeah.
So he is in desperate need of money.
Right.
Which,
right.
You know, obviously, when you owe money like that, and you find out you don't get half of $3 million, it's going to upset you. So, and the same with Vegas. He was just trying to make money for that deal.
Right. But I think, like, too, there was, like, the moments of, like, the dancing with Susanna, the fact that, like, Ray, his first kiss was with Susanna. And I think Charlie softened a little bit more to Ray. And then, like, even more so, like you said, when he brings him back to California, is trying to live with him and take care of him. And then there's, like, a kind of a scare where Ray puts a whole box of like I don't know if it was like a pizza thing, wasn't it, or something?
Yeah.
It was like in the toaster oven, and he puts the whole thing because he doesn't understand because he's having difficulty of getting it out. So he's like, oh, I'll just put the whole thing in there and it'll cook. But then it almost sets the place on fire, and and it scares Ray. And when they get to the point where they're meeting, Charlie's there with Ray, with Dr. Bruner, and they're with the other doctor. They're having a discussion about where Ray should be because, Charlie is saying that Ray has gotten to live more life in a week with him on this road trip than he has at the last 20 or 25 years at Walbrook. Yeah. And so Charlie doesn't bring up the incident where Ray kind of almost sets the place on fire, but the Dr. Bruner is trying to make a point to him that Ray cannot live independently.
Right.
Not
so
fully.
So you can't go to work all day and leave him home.
No, that would not be good. Also, too, the doctor, I don't remember what Barry Levinson's doctor's name is, but he's asking Ray questions, trying to get a sense of his competency and if he understands things. And Ray answers a lot of questions I don't know, and with conflicting questions, he'll answer the same way. And so it's basically determined. And I think Charlie probably sees at that point that maybe he's not equipped then to take care of Ray in a way that would keep him safe.
And give him a fulfilling life. Because if he's living there and he's by himself, he must be terrified.
But then, like he says, Charlie does point out, he makes a point that when he's talking about Ray to the doctors there, the psychiatrist, he's like, he's capable of a lot more than you're giving him credit for. That's one of his statements. And I think that's definitely true. It's, he's...
If they had nurtured those parts, maybe... where he excelled.
Well, and taking him out of his comfort zone a little bit too, in a way where he's not terrified.
It was a difficult trip. You know what I'm wondering about that trip?
Yeah.
If Susanna hadn't left on the second day,
what would have happened? Maybe.
I think the only way Charlie was going to come to love and appreciate Raymond, having to do it all on his own.
Absolutely.
So I think Susanna would have been a buffer and Charlie would have never really had any contact. It would all be Susanna's job to
caring
take care
for
of
him. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think I agree with you with that. Yeah, the moment and then toward the end where they're touching foreheads, Charlie and Ray, they're touching foreheads where they've made a connection. And I think kind of from that point, we see there's some narration at the end where Charlie's kind of talking, but you can see that he's going to be a part of Ray's life. He's going to...
I just keep thinking, move back to Cincinnati, dude.
Right.
Be close to your brother.
Right. Yeah. You don't need to be out in California when you're obviously not succeeding at what you're doing. So maybe try.
We hate to call you a loser, Charlie, but you're not doing great.
He's just misguided. And I think a lot with Charlie is there's a deep insecurity from the very get-go with the relationship with his dad, feeling like he's not good enough, feeling like he has to go over and above to get appreciation.
Even though he doesn't have a relationship with his dad, he is still trying to impress him.
Yep.
And say, look what I can do.
Right. But now that he has a brother that he can be himself with, there's no pressure. Obviously, Ray has no expectations of Charlie.
No.
None.
He doesn't expect him to make a lot of money. He doesn't expect him to excel in a career. He just expects him to be there and hang out.
Yeah. Was there anything else you wanted to say about the movie, or?
Just that since I was older than you when it came out, it was really a big cultural shift in the First of all, I think we were all just kind of like, oh, there's a thing called autism, because it was called so many other things, like the har word. That was used in everyday combo. And anyone who was intellectually different, that's what they were called.
There was one movie that came out. It wasn't as well known. It wasn't a big splash hit that came out before Raymond. It was called The Boy Who Flew or something like that. I saw that in my research. It was the first movie that featured somebody with autism, but again, it didn't make it a household name.
Movie,
yeah.
And I love it.
Well, I wanted to put it on the list of movies for us to watch. So we'll hopefully encounter it later, again, by looking at it. But yeah, that's the only one that came out before that.
Was that produced by Disney?
I have no idea, but it came out in 1986. So that's what I remember. It came out 2 years before.
If it's the one I'm thinking of,
probably.
I watched it all the time.
Right.
Yeah, it's about a kid with autism who, I don't think they ever call it autism, to tell you the truth, and his friendship with the girl next door, same age, yeah. So Yeah, it's a good one. We should put it on the list.
It's going to go on there.
You guys, we're going to be doing this for the next 1,000 years.
Yeah, we have to get
We
through all
can
these
never
movies.
die.
No, we can never be stopped. Rate the movie, Carrie. So, Rain Man, did you love it? Did you like it? Are you neutral? Did you not hate it? Did you hate it?
I'm going to have to do 2 ratings. One from 88. When I first saw it, I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved everything about it. When you pulled it last week, I was like, oh, man, I don't want to watch that.
Right. Mostly because of Tom Cruise, but
Well, also because I've seen it so many times.
That
I mean,
too.
I saw it a lot as a teenager. Now, I would say I'm neutral.
Yeah. I was going to say...
I mean, it's a good movie. Is it something I'll ever watch again? Probably not.
I would say I'm like between neutral and I like it. I definitely don't love the movie. Even as a child when I would watch it, because my dad really likes this movie. My dad loves the movie. I don't love it like my dad. I definitely think that there's funny scenes in the movie. There's funny lines. Like there's definitely stuff to appreciate. But yeah, I don't know if I would never like go out of my way to go watch it again.
Right. And I also think for me, just the age difference, like as a 13-year-old, I was like, oh my God, this is the best movie I've ever seen. But as an adult, where you have more life lived and nuances, and it's kind of like, eh. And also, I have an unretractable hate for Tom Cruise.
Cannot be understated in this episode.
It really can't. I refuse to watch anything with him now, so.
Well, we're possibly going to watch another movie.
Which one?
Vanilla Sky. It's been suggested to me.
I've never watched it.
I've never watched it either. So
it looked trippy.
Yeah, I mean, so
we should watch it together and drink, and then see how we feel about it. Yeah, but Carrie's favorite time. It is.
Okay.
I always just want to see what we're doing next.
All right, Carrie, shake it up.
Shake it.
Give it a good pop. Oh, not as good as last time. I know.
That was a disappointing. Little ASMR for you guys.
All right.
Oh my God.
Next movie to be reviewed.
Vanilla Sky, I'm gonna.
No, it's not even in.
I'm gonna. Have
it's not in the jar.
Breakdown.
I'd have to. I haven't even. It was suggested to me, but I haven't even put it on the potential list yet. Okay, you picked one. Is it just one or two?
It's one.
Okay. All right. The next movie is
Lars and the Real Girl.
Oh man, hey.
One of my all-time faves.
Yeah, but also, doesn't he have autism too? His character?
I never thought he did.
Okay, never mind then. I don't know. Maybe not.
I'm going to have to watch more carefully now.
I know, but I was going to say, like, we'll be doing it in April, so it would still be for Autism Acceptance Month. But, yeah, no, I thought his character did, but maybe I'm wrong. But, yeah, we're going to do Lars and the Real Girl.
I know there was a lot of weird stuff. Well, we don't have to discuss it now.
No, hold off. More for the podcast for next time.
Hey, guys, we're going to go right into Lars and the Real Girl.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you for listening. You can find us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Our podcast is also on YouTube, but then you can find us on all the major streaming services.
We're everywhere.
All right. Be cool. Until next time.
Stay in school.
And we're out.